Alright, making this video a second time. Camera failure. Camera's getting old. Probably should switch to something other, some other brand and whatnot. But anyway, so, questions videos, yes. So, MarijaKov made just a very interesting, beautiful video. Answering the question and Amanda's questions also, and asking for new questions. Very nice. And yes, it was all quite pleasant. I suppose I could play a little bit. This is really the funny part, actually. So I like this part.
Exploitation of animals, oppression of women and children, promote breeding.
Tell me what you really think. Yeah, listen, it's just really good. I love the whole, whatever that is, accent, you know, Russian kind of thing. Area, over that area, over there somewhere. But yeah, it's a charming accent. Yeah, really. Anyway, so questions. Yeah, and then I have to do the plant guy again. Did eight more videos. It's about the whole God thing. God. And his super fantastic raincoat or something. Anyway, alright, so question number 1. Considering how individuals of certain cultures' belief systems are championed for contributing to scientific and technical advance, how much, if any, credit should be given to those cultures' belief systems themselves for the mentioned scientific and technical contributions? Well, it's one of those things, you know, if you build it, they will come. If you build a good culture, the byproduct is going to be all kinds of productivity and advancement and good stuff. And if you have a crappy culture, then you're going to get crappy people distracted by crappy shit. And so I guess my argument would be it really shouldn't have anything to do with picking a culture, but just recognizing what kind of cultural mechanisms are important. And I guess I would argue that you know, like in the East, you know, they valued engineering, so a lot of people became engineers. People have, you know, skill levels, competency. Unfortunately, also value things like drinking, which is really bad. You know, drinking engineers, you know, just kind of defeats the purpose. But yeah, I just don't know if a generic word about culture means much in any kind of contexts. I mean, you could argue that cultures driven by religion are retarded, and that's what they are. You know, they've lost any capacity to create much productivity and to get much out of their citizens, except, you know, good prayer speech or something. You know, and way too many kids and just being ignorant. So yeah, fuck that. But you can't really measure culture just by how much it produces, I suppose, just because in the sense of you can have a culture that just enslaves people, and you know, you'd almost argue that maybe Japan's a little bit like that now. A little bit monotonous, a little bit, you know, just the gears turning. Not much personal value. Anyway, for a woman's reproductive rights advocate. So I'm just saying that, yes, I suppose if you can find flaws in cultures, find them, and then I'm just saying you build culture scientifically, like methodically, like you understand that a certain amount of liberty is good, but also you need institutions to motivate people, to get the best out of people, to inspire people. Obviously, it's not a good idea to, you know, create sports heroes and all this other kind of stuff, because then people just waste a lot of time trying to be sports heroes, and that's just silly and stupid. So obviously you need a culture that reveres productivity and not just exceptionalism. Being exceptionally big-eared is not a great thing. Being having exceptionally long eyelashes, not a great thing. Lots of things are not great, and we just seem to be glorifying the exceptionally meaningless and stupid. Our culture. Alright, for women's reproductive rights advocates, if it should be within a woman's reproductive rights to get an abortion, should it be within a woman's rights to give birth to children? Well, that in itself is a pretty interesting question, right? Making a life just seems like it's almost a bigger issue than squishing a fetus, But anyway, that is to say, should people, particularly men, be allowed to prevent pregnant women from having children? I've sort of spoken on this kind of subject before, but to me it's a contract, right? So if you're a man and you recklessly, without talking to the woman, just say, hey, let's fuck, baby, and she says, no, I think I've had enough to drink, so sure. And that's the extent of the relationship. Then it's the woman's, okay? It's all hers. So it all happens to her. It's all happening to her. It's all hers then. A man doesn't have a right to, retroactively say, I still own my sperm, and what it's doing now. And that's just bullshit. So, but clearly, and I'd say more often is the case, hopefully, men and women have some kind of conversation before they engage in this behavior that might create pregnancy, and they should have established rules or a contract for what's going to take place. And so if whatever's in that contract, I think, should be respected. So if a man makes it emphatically clear that he has no intention of being responsible for a living human being on earth, not only financially responsible, but he just doesn't want to create living things, and he has gotten agreement from the woman that if the methods of protection against that event fail and she ends up pregnant, that she's going to have an abortion, or there's going to be a procedure, of how to get rid of this problem or fix this problem, day after pills and this and that and that. And those are contracts. I'm just saying that, yeah, I think contracts have to be respected. I think women are grown-ups. They can, take responsibility for what they committed to, and they have no right to force a man to be a father if that's not what he intended to be. And she has an obligation, if part of the contract was you get an abortion, to have an abortion. But if there's no contract, then yeah, it's the woman's property. The man basically just trespassed and he's got no rights. How would you approach the issue of sex-selective abortion? I personally don't. I obviously don't like the idea of having kids. And if you're going to do it, though, and somehow you think you're going to do a better job if it's a certain sex, well, I don't know whether it makes any difference to me. But if it's just based on some sort of bigotry, then that's bullshit. But clearly, you got to think about the social impact, and you got to think about the welfare of the child, what's going to be in its best interest. So I guess I'm just saying it'd be the last thing, kind of, I would play a selective game with, and I'd be more concerned with its intelligence or its potential to get certain genetic diseases and all that stuff than I would be its sex. And I'm saying anybody who would probably be obsessed or find this a worthy reason to kill something, instead of end the pregnancy and start over, probably shouldn't be having kids, because it seems to me they're having kids for the wrong reason. They're all wrong reasons, but they're having kids for a very wrong reason. I guess I would argue. So in a sense, it's a moot question, because it's kind of just points out that most people are incompetent to be having children in the first place. Could you say it is acceptable to have such procedures triggered by harmful culture performed just for the sake of someone never being born into suffering? Well, if it was for the sake of not being born into suffering, so your question's a little bit, it didn't survive translation very well, I guess. If you were preventing suffering, then I would say it almost doesn't matter what you do. If it's a likelihood that you will prevent suffering. Anyway, For wildlife diversity advocates, why is repopulation desirable if acts of imposing, allowing suffering like hunting are wrong? If diversity is desirable by appeal to nature, why is it unacceptable for nature to take its course and let certain species go extinct? Is there such a thing as ideal quotient of diversity, for lack of a better expression, that should be pursued somehow? Well, I'd say there's a minimum, so you could argue that I would defend things, if, in the short term. You got to have good drinking water, you have to have certain things, so there's a certain amount of biological environmental function that needs to exist to filter the water, let's say. So you need some good critters to get that done, some good biology, and so that kind of thing has to be protected. But yes, every little crawly thing in the middle of the South American rainforest, no, I don't think you have to save every one of those, or every bacteria on Earth, or any of that kind of crap. So I don't think there is there's not the linkage is not that strong or vital, as we found out. I mean, over the last 300 years, human beings have created a bunch of, have transported invasive species all over the world and completely screwed up environments, and then they rebalance and they find some new balance. And maybe we don't like the fact that, dodo birds are extinct, but yeah, you can get along without them. So, and I would argue that, yes, from my perspective, the less life, the better. So, I would not, I don't even think as a practical matter nowadays it's all that much of a worry, because a lot of this stuff you can just keep alive in a sanctuary or in a zoo. And if you can't, then you can always just freeze it and keep its genetic code for the future. So if you need something, then you just make some in the future. If there's something valuable about them that you see something critical or necessary. But diversity for the sake of aesthetics is pretty much idiotic. And the assumption that balance can't be achieved, yes, it can, with much fewer critters. You can have a much simpler environmental mechanism do exactly the same, meet exactly the same kind of performance standards, so to speak. Alright, so I think that does that. Let's see if that camera's still working. It appears to be. I just don't want to... making videos more than once. But John might say, it was God. God said, I don't like that video. You must make it over again. But I don't, who knows. So anyway, this conversation is a little bit pointless, because it's just really a conversation about this people and their, kind of fanatic, I think undeserved appreciation for religious theory as viable, rational, reasonable, acceptable, sensible, and it just doesn't win on any. It doesn't. I just can't imagine what the appeal is in a way, because there's just nothing about God that in any way appeals to me. I mean, there's just not one single thing about it that appeals to me. Nothing. An obnoxious, distant, non-communicative, brutal tyrant. I mean, what is there to love? I'm sorry. God doesn't even sing. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do a damn thing. I mean, unless you, unless you say, talking very, very softly, so softly that you can't hear him, is a skill. Yeah, he just doesn't have any talent that has any value to me whatsoever. But anyway, we'll get to some of that maybe. So anyway, this starts with the first question, which is this evasion of the right to die question. Where he basically says you have the right to die, blah, 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 blah. I point out that handing a woman a coat hanger is not saying she has a right to an abortion. So this is just bullshit. We know that technology can make a big difference in how graceful your exit will be, and people have an entitlement, just as people have an entitlement to use technology to make surgery more pleasant and bearable. People have a, to save their life. People have a right to expedite their death with the same technology and with the same efficiency. And it's just bullshit to do anything to hinder that right. And then he brings up Switzerland, and we know that these stupid laws don't mean anything. They don't have anything to do with the right to die, suicide. They just have the right to mitigate against some sort of extreme illnesses. It's just another bureaucracy. It just isn't going to, it's not practical or useful for most people. They can't really exercise that right themselves. They have to exercise it through a whole huge institution. So yeah, it's just bullshit for you to make this argument that it should be hands off. I should be able to buy a knife and cut whatever I want with it, so to speak. The technology should be mine, not yours. You don't own it. The life lovers and livers should not be allowed to take possession of technology and claim that only they know how to use it. That's like saying that pens can only be used by people who are writing capitalist rubbish. Bullshit. The socialists should be allowed to have a pen too. Anyway, so his argument is this, it's kind of like the 12-stepper thing. It's all out of my control. I put everything in God's hands, blah, 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 blah. And it's, again, he just kind of evades that argument that that's just an abdication. There's real shit happening here on the lifeboat, and the God theory isn't going to fix the real shit on the lifeboat. So you can say that I am doing something, I'm talking about God. Well, talking about God will not fix the problems on Earth. God's theory, be fruitful and multiply, has absolutely nothing to do with fixing anything here on Earth. It just won't get the job done. It's not pragmatically or in any way a practical, implementable strategy. Most of the God-fearing people in the world are shitheads. I would say bigger shitheads, personally. Okay, teach, not force. Yeah, well, everybody's all for that. But again, your God doesn't do that. Your God doesn't teach. He doesn't inspire us with words. He basically threatens people, and he exercises those threats. He flooded the planet and killed everybody. He punished all women for eternity for the sins of Eve. I mean, he's brutal in his force, the application of his force, and his draconian punishments. And so, it's just kind of lame to say we, as reasonable people, can't create systems of reward and punishment on this earth that can do any good, when that strategy is entirely what God is dependent on. He's totally trying to scare us into performing better, or to bribe us into performing better. There's nothing, absolutely nothing in the Bible about just do it for the right reasons. Do it because it's the right thing to do, and here's the rational argument. None of that. I will, the poor will not be with you always if you do the right thing. He doesn't say things like that. It's all about what happens to you. It's not about what happens to the destiny of mankind. He's not putting, he's not obliging the parents to do the right thing by pointing out how it'll benefit the children. He's talking about punishing the parent, or punishing or rewarding the parent, and that's the wrong. If you really were motivated by principle, the argument would be the principled argument. Do it for the future. That would be the argument. So then he said some sort of bottom line. He doesn't have any children. It's not his problem because he didn't make children. And again, I've made this argument thousands of times, but it really doesn't matter. Having your own children doesn't change anything in terms of the real game we're playing. It doesn't change your responsibility to the idea of children, the concept of a child. It doesn't change the property of the children that exist. This my crap is just crap. What exists and what will exist is the thing. It's all of our responsibilities. We are the past to the future, and we're going to make their bed, so to speak. The future will lie in the bed we make, and it really doesn't matter whether it has any of my personal genetic code in it or not. I mean, nothing could be considered, in my opinion, more irrelevant than whether or not any of my cellular structure is, manifested in future generations. I could care not. All right. Rich or bad for different reasons. So again, he's just basically trying to put it that this thing that we're all sinners and all sins are the same. So if you step on it, you see a sign that says don't walk on the grass, and you walk on the grass, you're just as guilty as the guy who just raped the 96-year-old woman. It's just kind of this bullshit that the nature of our vice, our demonic despotism is all the same, because it's really not. We could tell the difference between people who are really fucktarded and people who are just a little fucktarded. And I would, of course, like some sort of balance in perspective to be applied to the rich, and I'd like them to be called what they are, slave owners and exploiters. I call capitalists exploitonists for that reason, because that's all they're really trying to do, is find somebody to exploit, something to exploit to their personal advantage. These are selfish assholes. They should be called what they are, and just as a heinous criminal should be called a useless sack of violent, crappy shit. A broken and fucktarded piece of shit. And, where appropriate, they should be discontinued. The model should be put out of commission, and we shouldn't make any more of those. Alright. Eternity in hell, and so he keeps pretending that he's going to modify Christianity, so there's no hell, there's just some sort of second death. And that just, again, is evading the subject, which is there's lots of places in the Bible where God made the hell right here on earth, where the punishment was direct. He gave people festers, and he imposed blights on them, and he rained frogs on them, and and again the punishment of all women for the sins of Eve. I mean, Noah's Ark. I mean, all these things are draconian, hell-like punishments. So even if hell doesn't exist, the idea that your government loves to punish is a fact. He loves to use threats of violence as a way of persuading us. So anyway, so I just don't see how you're going to, God's petty vengeance has no comparison. As bad as human beings are, the God of Christianity is not a loving, forgive kind of a guy. He's a pretty shitty person. God. Let's see. Praise God is the wrong reason. Please God is the wrong reason. Yeah, so God doesn't have the guts to talk to us directly. He doesn't have, he doesn't do any of this logical thing. He's made in our image, and yet he doesn't have a mouth, and he doesn't have ears to listen and talk. And so, I mean, it just seems kind of bullshit. It seems a distant, uncommunicative. He doesn't even try to persuade me. He sends a Bible full of the silliest fucking idiotic stories that don't have any connect. Bats are birds, and all kinds of dopey Old Testament stories about if you find a dead bird on the street, give it to a homeless man, because you're too fancy to eat dead birds, and if it makes you it might make you sick. So it's okay to make the homeless man sick because he's hungry and desperate. And it's okay to fuck the desperate. Why would that be okay? Why is it, it's like the, Jesus will say, go hunt down the black sheep, and, it's okay to, neglect the good sheep and pay all this attention to the black sheep. And yet, the Old Testament, it's, poor people aren't as important as you. making them sick is okay. You being sick isn't okay. Is that a loving God that does that kind of crap? It's not. It's bad enough the guy's homeless or poor. You got to pile on top of that. Well, I might make you sick too. Oh, great. All right. Then he talks about how we're just atheists. If you're an atheist, that means we're just animals, and you don't have any. You know, we can't be anything but dumb monkeys. And so I'm sitting here with this educated brain, and this guy's telling me if I'm an atheist, I'm not allowed to recognize that I have an intelligence, a capacity to be intelligent, and that you know, it's kind of a unique feature on planet Earth. But yes, this whole language thing, the slow maturation allows our brain to do language and to store words as concepts and to understand categories and properties and to understand that you can't win by beating the shit out of your own kind. That you can't steal from the future profitably. It's stupid. Okay, the future is going to be the same as you. It's going to be the same stuff, the same conscious brain struggling, the same idea. You're not special. You're not especially special. You're unique, but your uniqueness is like snowflakes' uniqueness. It just can't possibly mean anything. Anyway, God is working on it. Well, that's your presumption. He's not working on it very cleverly, in my opinion. His argument sucks. His Bible's all babbly and bullshitty. He's not making a rational argument of persuasion. He's making a bunch of threats and making a bunch of bribes. So I don't see how there's anything to admire in the conversation that your God is providing. And then you say the God I describe. Well, it's not about the God I describe. It's about the God described in the book that's supposed to represent God. And so again, if you're God, if you're all powerful, only God knows, God is love, God is all this stuff, and he can't even persuade people to write his book correctly, how is that bad on me? It's not bad on me, that's bad on your God. If the God story is incorrect, it's incorrect because God wants it that way. It's just kind of silly to say he can't even write a book and get it right. He can't get the storytellers to tell the story right. All his power to do all these things, and he can't even convince people who are writing the book of God to write it correctly? Come on. Who am I to judge God? Well, frankly, we have to judge things in the world, and the part I'd like you to judge is the evidence that your God doesn't exist, the evidence, the more reasonable evidence that we just evolved on this planet as, you know, selfish monkeys, and that we do have a huge advantage of having a conceptual mind, and that we can see many different worlds. We can imagine the future. We can imagine all kinds of things the other animals can't, and we can be quite sophisticated and quite understanding and quite capable of reasonably balancing the values at stake and understanding that we're just one individual and there's lots of individuals, and we all need to be fed and we all need to be cared for and we all need not to be bleeding and suffering and burning in oil and all that kind of shit. And that we have to try to create mechanisms to prevent people from being psychotic or crazy or stupid. And we have to engineer all that stuff, and it's all on us because there's nobody else here to do it. We're the smartest people on the bus. We really need to be driving the bus. It's just that simple. There's no God to save the day. We have to do it. We have to check the tires. We have to make sure there's enough air in them. We have to do all this maintenance shit. We got to be the janitors. We got to clean this shit up. And God just gives people an excuse to evade the subject and to play some silly game that if I get a little water sprinkled on my head and I walk around saying I'm a sinner, and then I say forgive me every 15 minutes when I sin, I mean, that ain't going to save the world. This isn't what the human race needs to do a lot better than this, and God is not a performance enhancer. Okay, it really isn't. The people who believe in gods on this earth are not the high performers. Make justifications for I think it's just, again, just rationalizing away the truth, which is that God is a bitch, an asshole, a fucker, a cunt. I mean, this whole idea of punishing children for the crimes of the parent, when logically you should be doing it the other way around. The creator should be punished for his incompetence. He shouldn't be killing humans for being assholes. He should be having his own nutsack spanked for his arrogance and his incompetence. What's his role in this creation? I mean, we know that these things don't come from nowhere. I mean, rotten kids aren't born, really. They are made by rotten parenting. And God's been a lousy parent. He's been a lousy leader, a lousy guide, a lousy role model. His role model in his Bible was horrible. Punish the children for the crimes of the parent. Don't communicate. Don't even try to do this. Forgive 7 times, 70 times. Where did he do that with Adam and Eve? He didn't forgive once. A draconian punishment for a minor crime. The whole thing is just silly. What do we have these erect penises for? And it's the whole fantasies in our head. Did we do any of that? I didn't create any of that stuff. I didn't sit here and say, I'm going to make myself have a sexual fantasies or do that. No, that's his creation. That's not my fault. He should be beating the shit out of himself. He should be in the woodshed getting spanked, not us. We're the victims of his creation. I mean, you just got it so wrong to think somehow we are the people. We are the ones who spoiled it. No, I didn't spoil nothing. Fuck that. This fucking party was going the wrong way long before I showed up. Anyway. Then he talks about loving all people, and it's like, oh, fuck that. People are ideas, and you really can't separate those things, and ideas end up being actions in the world, and those actions end up being horribly exploitive and destructive and harmful and awful. There's no reason to love the rapist. There's no reason to love the capitalist. There's no reason to love the inheritance wealther who has no humility. There's no reason to love all these assholes. There's every reason to call them what they are, really crappy occupants of the lifeboat. And, you know, if we really do have to dispose of some extra weight, they're probably the things we should be disposing of, because they're starving the rest of us. They're killing us with their greed and their sloppy, inconsiderate, and unethical behavior. Their recklessness makes life much more burdensome and much more unpleasant than it needs to be. They're just noise makers. They're tire flatteners. They don't do anything to make anything work. They just break. They're just breakers, and they should be broken. All right. Yeah. Fuck love. Anyway, I don't even know what that means anyway. I don't know. The whole love thing is kind of not a very useful word in my vocabulary, frankly. Anyway, so looks like it's still working. So it looks like we have a successful video. So I won't push my luck, and I'll say thank you very much. Yeah, I just don't. I'm just saying, like I said, it seems you're a reasonable person. You can kind of understand. I mean, I think you do know that, yeah, we evolved, and but I don't really know why you need God. Like I said, I'm conceding that, okay, you do, but yeah, I just don't, you know. It just seems rather. I guess that I'd call that the injury, is the fact that you need God. But I'd almost call it an insult for you to argue that, well, I'm going to argue for God, because I think you know that, you know, come on. That's not what the world needs. People believing in God is not going to fix the problem on this planet. It's not gonna, yeah, no. We need better than gods. Created in the image of rotten men, and that's all they really are. Come on, they're just misogynist assholes, big egoed, dictators. It's very unimpressive monsters, these gods. Anyway, till next time, and such.